arguing it with people. It's really destroyed people's ability to reason. I mean, as you've seen in this book, it's right in front of us.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
But why don't people see it? Because it was such a strong psychological operation. It destroyed people's ability to know what's real and what's not.
So,
and they want to know what the truth is, and they run to this truth movement business. But as I point out, do you think those who pulled off 9/11 just forgot to plan a cover-up?
yeah, no.
And so what would it look like?
Yeah, very true. Well, now let's get into sort of the meat of what you're talking about here. All of these anomalies, and every single thing we've talked about is an anomaly. If you're looking at the official story or the controlled demolition story, everything is anomalous. It would make no sense. But it does make sense when you're talking about directed energy weapons. And you go into Tesla's technology a fair amount in here. Can you begin, just again, without being so scientific that you're going to lose the non-scientists among us,
Yeah.
can you begin Can you begin on a layperson's level talking about the Tesla technology and what exactly could have caused this weird kind of damage across the board?
Well, first of all, not knowing what this weapon was,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a kinetic energy weapon like a bomb or bullet or something that throws something from, and hits something. Like if you throw a brick at someone and hit them, that's a kinetic energy weapon. A directed energy weapon is energy that's been directed and was used as a weapon. A very general category. I don't know how else to categorize it. And sure, there are, lasers and other things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an energy field and field effects that happen in a field. And it's obviously the energy was directed because it was pretty precise as to how it acted that day. And it wasn't a random orientation of energy. And also, kinetic energy weapons involve heat and expansion of heat. And sound waves. Things go boom. And that didn't happen. But it was something that, right before your eyes, you saw those steel columns dustify. You didn't see anything hit it.
Mm-mm.
And that's a signature there, too, of energy weapons affecting it. But when I was looking at the data, and I believe you look at the data long enough, it'll tell you what happened. If you don't know what happened, just keep looking. And I kept tabulating all the different characteristics, and I'd give them whatever names came to mind as unique descriptions, like fuzzballs. We didn't talk much about that. The columns, as they're falling,
Mm-hmm.
turn to dust. That dust lands, and you have clear blue sky behind it. And then that dust starts breaking down and rising up. So we know the dust continued breaking down. At first, it was kicked up around people's feet, and I call those fuzzballs. And then after a while, you notice it's rising on its own. And
as in anti-gravitational?
As in being so fine that it just floats up.
I see. Yeah, no mass, very little mass. Yeah.
And also the dust rollout.
Mm-hmm.
When the dust rollout first occurred, it comes to an abrupt stop at a particular street. When the South Tower first went, it rolled out to the north up to one street, and then when the North Tower went, it rolled up one block further. The towers are one block apart from each other.
Well, that's bizarre. So there was somehow a controlled extension of this, or was it that natural to the dynamic of whatever destroyed it?
The latter. I think it is natural to the dynamic of what destroyed it. If it's breaking it down at a certain rate, you can get a rock and throw it pretty far, but how far can you throw flour?
Yeah.
And so if this is breaking down at a certain rate, it gets down to a certain size that it quits going further, and then it just floats with the wind. And there's this amazing video from Bob and Bree's apartment they took, and you could see the dust almost came to their window. It didn't quite touch their window, and then started rising up like yeast bread.
Mm-hmm.
It's just amazing. That was amazing. So there's all these different phenomena that I was tabulating, including the peeling effect on cars. Like the split thickness of the door would peel, which was, these are not laminated doors, so why does it look like it's delaminating? Mm-hmm. And you just keep adding these things up. I didn't know what it meant, and I didn't force it into any particular conclusion. If somebody takes a multiple choice test, they're forcing things into particular slots of what they know of. Instead, I was letting the data speak. And then one day, I happened upon a blog of someone, and my goodness, these look like they came from the World Trade Center. But wait, this guy did it in his own apartment. He had reproduced all of the same phenomena that I had noticed, including that split thickness. He had a piece of aluminum that split open, including things dustifying, floating up. The fumes that rose up, I don't call it dust because you don't know exactly what it is. Not fuzzballs, but fuzzy blobs. It's something else. It's this haze that kind of drifts around. And he actually had a name for it. He named it after somebody, called it Carl. So it was all of the same phenomena. It was just totally amazing.
And he'd created this as a result of experimentation in his living room?
In his apartment.
In his apartment? Well,
right.
Okay, so a little while ago when we were talking about the windows, one of the things you said could have been involved, could be responsible for such a reaction was longitudinal energy waves, which you said can be created in a lab setting.
Yes, and he had experienced that too, round holes in windows.
Was he working with longitudinal energy waves?
Yes. And he was trying to replicate the work of Nikola Tesla. And he first started out with a big Tesla coil, and then would interfere in that static field, various radio frequency signals, and then started getting weird effects. I thought, oh, this is fun. Let's see what happens here. You get something that rises up. Sometimes something would fly up. Sometimes it would tear apart. And I've got videos of some of these the experiments on my website, where you have a metal file where it cracks in half, and then one half it slides over relative to the other half. Mm-hmm. And then there's a piece of steel rod that starts doing sit-ups. It's a rigid steel rod. It's like it turns into jello, jelly just starts doing sit-ups and then snakes around. There's another one that's about 2 inches in diameter that looks almost like it has a heartbeat. You see the shimmer on the surface of it. It's just very liquidy. And then after turning off the gizmo, the signals and so forth, it re-solidifies. And sometimes it goes into spontaneous combustion. Doesn't that sound familiar?
Yes, it does. You talked about John Hutchinson in here.
Yep. That's who I was talking about there.
Yeah.
After I found that blog, that was his blog. I got in touch with him and went to visit him, and saw his stuff, mm-hmm. His various samples and the equipment in action and whatnot, and it was just really amazing.
Well, now, obviously, John is brilliant. We know anyone who's followed him through the years, this is a brilliant human being. So we know that he understands these principles, and he can apparently, recreate this phenomena with experiments with energy directed devices and so forth. But
would never use it as a weapon. With
knowledge, let's just say some other parties have that knowledge and choose to use that as a weapon. How difficult is it to use as a weapon? Does it take some extraordinary kind of materials or something to do this? Or is it, once you understand the principles, is it a relatively simple thing to do?
I think it's relatively simple, but you need to have control of the various components of it. John doesn't write anything down. He's just enjoying playing with nature, seeing what nature can do, mm-hmm. and experimenting, not